بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So inshallah in today's Sirah talk we will talk about Battle of Badr that we started last week. We did not get into the battle itself yet. We were still talking about things happened prior to Battle of Badr. So in summary, today we'll talk briefly about what we talked about last week, and then we move on to the things that happened right before Battle of Badr and some of the things when two armies met. We'll talk about a bit more next week as well, inshallah, and we'll finish off Battle of Badr. As far as last week goes, we talked about the Sariyah of Nakhla. As we know, this is the first battle in which one of the polytheists was killed, and this was among the 8 battles, small battles that happened prior to Battle of Badr, which is referred as Ghazwat Badr al-Kubra as well. And we talked about the Sariyah Nakhla and then some of the reasons behind the Battle of Badr as well. It's important to understand that, as I continuously mentioning, we should not be thought of it as if it is just expansion or like a power hunger thing going on to try to steal the resources of other nations, or rather it is about a very basic principle, which is to convey the message from the Creator of the heavens and the earth to the mankind. And if there are barriers that are coming in the middle, to remove those barriers, not to talk about there is no unjust killing or anything going on, or indiscriminately people are getting killed. As a matter of fact, there are very clear rules and regulations about the battles as well in Islam. That includes, for example, men or the children and the women and children are not supposed to be killed. Even the elderly people or monks and priests, whosoever those people are, who are not engaged in war or battlefield, they are not the ones supposed to be fought against. This is strictly between the armies and the people who are fighting against the Muslims. Even this command about not even cutting the trees when you are going in a battlefield. Not to say I'm trying to here just to give a different version of what the Sirah is talking about. We want to make sure that what we are studying here, learning here, is from the Sirah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and not tempered or not twisted just to make people comfortable about it. The thing is, this is a history we're discussing. We should be studying and learning in the right manner. We're talking about the actions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is referred as part of the wahi, a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was the messenger of Allah. He conveyed the message as Allah gave it to him to convey to the people. And this is our job. Our job should be, the message should be taken to the mankind in the purest form as much as possible. We can do, of course, human mistakes and errors can happen, but we try our best to convey the message as is. Should not be tempered, should not be changed, should not be twisted, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now talking about that, we talked about the size and the strength of the Muslim army. That was about, as we mentioned, from 300 to 313, and the leadership among the Muslims. We also talked about how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam divided the army between the Ansar and the Muhajirin. And even books of the Sirah and the Hadith discuss this concept of Ansar and Muhajirin, number one, which is two distinct groups that existed among the Muslims. And among them, they were referred as Ansar, for example, the one from Al-Aus or the Khazraj, those two main tribes. And then among the Muslims, other than the Ansar, the Muhajirin, we know that people belong to different tribes. And we talked about that idea of this tribalism or recognition by distinct groups. That is, Islam does not go against that idea that the people belong to different tribes. Islam does not say people do not have different races, people do not speak different languages, people are coming from different geographical locations. Islam does not reject this. As a matter of fact, Allah Azza wa Jal accepts this idea. Not only that, it actually defines that Allah is the one who made us like that. when he talks about this. But that idea of we are different, it is only for recognizing each other. It has nothing to do with a person or a group of people become better based on the ethnic group or the race and so on and so forth. And this is Islam that really can solve this huge problem that exists in the world today, where nations think they are better than the others. The aqwam, or they think of they are better than others. Or in the United States, today, as we are sitting here in 2023, we still hear all those news about the racism that is going on in the United States. I was just watching a video about there's one African American guy. He was calling because the cop was following him because he was distributing, what's it called when you throw newspapers in the houses? Newspaper carrier, or the one who throws the newspapers. You put them in a plastic bag and throw them. The reason I'm defining like that because I know that nowadays people don't read really newspapers like that. It's all online. So sometimes you have to mention it, but it's still good, people do that. So that African American guy was distributing that paper, and the cops start following him because he was distributing in a white neighborhood. So he's continuously following. Then at one point he even called the other police. The 40 police officers showed up, and this guy is now they showed up thinking of as if he's a threat to the neighborhood, and he was scared to death. Even till now, he has a fear of leaving the house now because he was thinking of he will be George Floyd now, or the new terms have been coined as if somebody's going to be George Floyd, or Keenan Anderson, when he was killed about 2 weeks ago or so. He was saying that he was going to George Floyd. He was tased to death, meaning he had a cardiac arrest later on. This guy had the same thing. The point I'm trying to make here is when we talk about this idea of we recognize people, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about that we are the one who divide the people into nations and tribes, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, that we, O people, we created you from one male and one female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ, and we are the one who made you into nations and tribes. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. And indeed, in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, the honorable one is the one who has taqwa, the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That makes one better than the other, and that is not you and me decides who's better than the other. In this case even, Inna Allah alimun khabir, Allah is the one who has the knowledge, He is the one who is aware of who has more taqwa than the other. See, it's very nice and easy for somebody to come sit here at the member or the table and discussing these things and think, oh, that brother is knowledgeable, he has more taqwa. No, Allah is the one who has more taqwa. It's not a person who carries degrees or some labels around his name, a shaykh or an imam or this or that. That does not make one person better than the other. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says even about being a scholar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Indeed, the one who has إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء, that indeed the one who fears Allah the most are the one who are knowledgeable. So the idea of knowledgeable or ulama or alim is very well connected to the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not connected to how much of a knowledge a person carries. From that perspective, maybe shaitan has more knowledge than many of the Muslim ulama. So that does not make a person an alim. The real alim is the one who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way he's supposed to be feared. See, when Allah subhanahu, we hear this ayah all the time in the khutbs. Imam will start giving the Jum'ah khutbah and say, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu taqullaha, that O people, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you have been commanded to be feared. Yeah? So the idea of to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not the idea of fear, that's not the right word when we say taqwa, by the way. I know we translate many times as the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It actually means consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a better translation. I digress from the subject. Okay, so we're talking about so this is how Rasulullah divided his army into the one Muhajirin was separate from the Ansar. The reason I brought this idea up here is a lot of time people think of it if people are recognize themselves by different labels, it means they are bringing in some sort of a disunity among the ummah. Yes, it can be cause of disunity if you start thinking you are better because of that, or you are the only one who is carrying the haqq. That can be a problematic thing. But the thing is to understand that task needs to be done. For that, we do have labels around us. Rasulullah divided the people into Ansar and Muhajirin and the different tribes, the labels they were carrying. Okay. Now, moving on. So this army was going in the direction of either go after the caravan of the kuffar of the Makkah, which was led by Abu Sufyan, or the second option was to go against the army that the Makkans prepared. And Abu Sufyan was able to find the safe haven and escape from the vicinity of the Muslims when he was bringing the caravan back from the Sham to Mecca. So what he did was he moved the caravan towards the Red Sea, which is the west side of the Arabian Peninsula, and he escaped. And the army was prepared from the Meccans to go and defend that caravan actually. Now when Abu Jahl, who was leading this army, when he found out that okay, the Meccan caravan has escaped, he still insisted that he wanted to go and fight. While on the other hand, the other kuffar who was along with Abu Jahl in the army, they wanted to leave. And we know that about 300 soldiers, they did leave the army because they started with 1,300 soldiers and they ended up with an army of 1,000. I'm talking about Meccan army. Okay, and we talked about Rasulullah's consultation among the Muslims. And I'll talk about another incident of consultation, Shura, which is a buzzword sometimes we hear a lot among the Muslims. Shura, we have to do everything with Shura. What does it mean by Shura? I will give a couple of other examples so we get an idea. We talked about the example when Rasulullah asked for the Shura about fighting against the Meccans, and Muhajirin were the one, including Abu Bakr, Umar, Al-Miqdad bin Aswad, which is also referred as Al-Miqdad bin Amr. They replied back. They responded to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah is still asking for advice. And Ansar realized Rasulullah is asking for Ansar's advice. And upon that, Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, radiallahu anh, he is the one who got up and he represented Ansar. He said, it seemed like Rasulullah, you were expecting us to reply. And Rasulullah said yes, and then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked to Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, and Sa'ad bin Mu'adh gave complete submission to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this case, that whatever Rasulullah command him, they will follow, and every single one of the Ansar will follow Rasulullah. Even if Rasulullah asked them to go and jump into the sea, they would do that. Even up to that extent. And Rasulullah was very pleased with Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu anhu's response. And Al-Miqdad, even though he was from the Muhajirin, his response was very good as well, as we talked about. He said that we will not act as if the Bani, like the children of Israel or Bani Israel. They responded to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam when Musa asked him to go with them and fight the Jabbarun, the tyrants of that time. And they said, we are sitting here, you and your Rabb go and fight with them. We're going to sit here. And Al-Miqdad said, we are not going to respond like that. We will say, you and your Rabb, and we will come along with you to fight against the mushrikeen. And Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, sorry, he mentioned that he was so pleased to hear this from Miqdad. He wished that all his deeds would be placed on one side, and the statement that he made, it weighs more than that. So subhanAllah. And this is another aspect which I kind of forgot to mention last week, so I want to just highlight that idea. See, Sahaba, they used to compete with each other for goodness. They would not miss anything. They would try to compete. And we will see that how much they competed, that it's even Umar would be competing with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu all the time. And Abu Bakr, subhanAllah, was a personality. I would highly recommend you guys read about him. A lot of time we hear about Umar, because Umar ruled for 10 years, 10 plus years. Abu Bakr had a very strong personality, subhanAllah. Sahaba would try to compete. Umar used to compete with him all the time. and he would never be able to catch up with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. At one point in the Tabuk, which will come, but I'll mention anyways. So in the Battle of Tabuk, when Rasulullah asked Sahaba to bring whatever you have to help for this army, and Umar, he brought half of his belongings of the house, and he's thinking, today I'm gonna beat Abu Bakr. He goes there, and Abu Bakr, when Rasulullah asked Abu Bakr, what did you bring? And he said, when he showed, and he asked, did you leave anything for the family? And he said, I left only the name of Allah and His Messenger for the family. So he brought everything. And Umar said, from there on, he stopped competing with Abu Bakr. This is not even possible for Umar to compete with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. And the funniest thing about that whole thing is, when you read about Abu Bakr's life, Abu Bakr is not even trying to compete. So it's as if he's walking and the rest of the people are running to catch up with him. Can you imagine if he was competing, what would have happened? So subhanAllah, that was part of his nature, the way Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh was. And the reason I'm bringing this up, we should be thinking this way ourselves. We say all the time, we want to follow Rasulullah. We want to follow the Sahaba Ridwanullah alayhim. Well, be like them. Try to compete as much as possible for the goodness. Not be the one who are competing with each other about bad things that people are doing around us. So have peer pressure, but peer pressure to do goodness. Surround yourself with the people who will motivate you to do more and more goodness. And if you don't, then believe me or not, that's our surrounding, our companionships, it does have impact on us. So please, the friends you have has a great impact. As the hadith of Rasulullah says, that Ar-Rajulu ala deen khalili. The man is on the deen of his friend. Okay? Watch out who you're friends with. So your friends define you and you define your friend. So either you will become like your friends if you are strong, if you're weak. I'm not saying weakness in a bad sense. If friends are good, you will get better. Okay? Or you are strong enough and you are bad, and you may make others bad also. So have good companionship, and inshallah that will help all of us to have to become better and better, inshallah, on a daily basis. Okay, now after all this, what happened about the Rasulullah did the consultation, and then Rasulullah started doing the scouting operation. Remember, I told you Rasulullah was very well aware person about what was happening around, and when it comes to Battle of Badr also. So he himself went out with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh to collect information about the Meccans as well. And while they were there, so they were able to get some information regarding the know about of the Quraysh camp. A story is not mentioned in that book. Other places it's mentioned when Rasulullah came across a man and he asked for the questions about the know about of the Meccans, and he was kind of being resistant. And Rasulullah said, look, he wants to ask questions to Rasulullah as well. So when he asked, Rasulullah asked him about the Meccans, and he mentioned in a manner that Rasulullah was able to figure out that what he was talking about the location of it. And then when he asked Rasulullah about him and where is he from? So Rasulullah said, Mimma, he is from water. And now from water in Arabic, it can be referred as, okay, which water are you talking about? The water from Iraq, the water from Sham, water from this area. So water is referred as a location of the people. Okay. Now Rasulullah, this is a battlefield going on. Look, you cannot disclose information about you also. So he did not want the kuffar of Makkah to know that Rasulullah is coming with the army as well. So he just said Mimma, and he turned back. Because he said that he will give him information, he did. Mimma, ma, we are all created from water. Water is one of the ingredients Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with. So he said this and moved away. So this is just an side information, because in the case of the battles, it's a different story that how you deal with this kind of information. You don't say, I don't lie, so I have to give all the information whatever I have when you are in this kind of situation. Okay. Now, so it does mention this old Bedouin that they were talking to, and this is a conversation that happened. And then Rasulullah also sent some of the leaders of the Muhajirin, that included Ali bin Abi Talib, Zubayr bin Awam, and Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. These are three big, huge names among the Sahaba. When you read about them, there's a lot of information available about these Sahaba, Ridwanullah alayhim. As a matter of fact, all these three Sahaba are from the 10 Sahaba that Rasulullah ﷺ gave the glad tidings about the people of Jannah. Okay? They went there and they found two boys, men, ghulamain it says, so it's young men, young boys, and they start asking them information about the Meccan army. Now, when these guys were asking, they wanted to get information in the sense of wanting to know about the caravan. Okay, so when the boy was giving them information about the army, and they were asking about caravan, more of the caravan, and he was with the army, and he was talking. Those two guys were telling about the army. When Rasulullah heard about them, as the hadith says, actually it's not mentioned here in the book, it's not mentioned, but the hadith says Rasulullah when let me take it back. The Arabic book says that, the English translation doesn't say that, unfortunately. I don't know why. There's quite a few things sometimes are missing when they are translating some of the stuff. So it says Rasulullah when he was done with the prayers, then when he saw these two young boys were there, so he saw that these two boys, whenever they were beating him up, and he started saying, it says that when the answer did not please them, they start beating them up. And then he starts asking them about the caravan. The boys did not know, but they start giving some information. So when he started lying, they would leave him. So Rasulullah said that they are giving you information about the Quraysh. Take that, and in reality, when you were not beating them up, they were saying the truth. Rasulullah was angry at them that you are beating the boys up when they are saying the truth. When they were started lying, you were relieving them. And Rasulullah was able to get the information from them, as is mentioned when they were asking the question. They asked actually Rasulullah asked questions like how many camels were they sacrificing to get the estimate of the number of people were with the Meccans. So they said 9 to 10 camels every day. That meant was about 900 to 1,000 soldiers were with the Meccans. Okay, so I'm assuming that one camel is sufficient for 100 people. And then when it comes to the number of people who were with them, because he asked them who was with them, the notable ones, the elites among them, the leaders of the Meccans, they said that included Utbah and Shaybah. These were the sons of Rabi'a and Abu al-Bakhtari bin Hisham, Hakim al-Hizam, Hizam actually, not Hazam, Hizam, Nawfal bin Khuwaylid. Nawfal bin Khuwaylid, if you remember, Rasulullah married to Khadija bint Khuwaylid. So this Nawfal bin Khuwaylid was actually was a half brother of Khadija bint Khuwaylid. Okay, from the previous wife of the father of Khadija, the son was Nawfal. And Al-Harith bin Amr, Tayma bin Adi, Nadr bin Al-Haritha, Zama' bin Al-Aswad, and Abu Jahl, Umayyah bin Khalaf. See, so many of them, when we were talking about the Meccan era, they were involved and engaged in harming Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these people carried on their hatred to the point they came to this battlefield. The only person among them, which Hakim bin Hizam was the one who later on became a Muslim. Okay. Now, when Rasulullah and the army marched forward and they came closer to a spring in the well, or the well of the Badr, Rasulullah stationed the army there. And this is an incident I want you guys to pay attention to more. Hopefully you were doing already, but more attention here. When the army is stationed here, Al-Hubbab bin Mundir radiallahu anhu, he was very sharp in battlefield strategies. And he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about where the army was camped. He said, is this because Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded you to be here? See, this is a question, very important question he's asking. If Allah has commanded you, he would have kept quiet. Or is it just your war strategy? Okay? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's response was, this place was chosen based on his own strategy. It's not a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Upon that, he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then this is not a good place. What should we do? We should do is, we collect the water from all those wells where we are at, and then we move to a higher location. Okay? And then the kuffar will not have access to the water as well. You will have the water that you want, you take the water and you have access to water that you need, but the rest of it, you are basically preventing the Makkans to have access to the water as well. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted his plan and agreed to do what he recommended. Now, why was I saying that this is important for us to understand this? Look, there's only one person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He gave the suggestion to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he accepted it. That's a shura, right? It's a consultation. It's an advice coming from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But does that advice mean that we as Muslims can gather and go against the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Meaning, can we say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, but today we are living a time and a place, and I think if we all agree upon something, so we can put the hukm of Allah on the side? No, we cannot. That's not what the shura is about. Shura is not about that. Shura is about things which are permissible in Islam. See, again, Allah is the one who decides what is permissible and what is not. Meaning, so when we talk about from the fiqh perspective, our actions can be divided into 5 categories. One is called fard, or it's also referred as wajib, and then sunnah, which is also referred as mandub, sunnah, and nafila. These all categories are, that means actually an action is recommended. If you do it, you get hasanat. If you don't do it, you are not rebuked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Third category, which is also from Allah, that actions are permissible, meaning mubah, that if you do or you don't do, you don't get any kind of the reward, whether it's good or bad. Yeah? Fourth category is called makruh. Makruh means some action which is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Dislike means it's not haram. If you don't do it and you are in that situation, you're pulling yourself out of that, you're getting hasanat for that. But if you stay away, from it, you get hasanat. If you do it, you're not sinful for that. Now, first one, which is haram, which is you're not supposed to do. Now, this category action comes in the action of mubah, permissible, made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Allah is the one who decides what action we should do and what we should not do. So for any action that we are undertaking, we are getting into, we should know what is the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that specific action. Okay. Now, having said all that, so this idea of advice, or this idea of shura, consultation, that was done in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a very good example to remember that shura is part of Islam, but that's not to decide what is halal and haram. It's given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shura is about consultation about something already made halal by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, permissible, meaning you can go do either way. Okay? So that's what the shura is about, not to be mixed with. Sometimes people try to mix the shura with democracy. This is not comparable things. Okay? And if there is any question about this, I really would like you guys to please do ask me questions after the talk as well. I'm here to answer if I can, inshallah. Now, same way, there's another advice came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What was the other advice? Other advice was from Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiyallahu anhu, and he said we should build some sort of a camp or canopy for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be there, and that will act as a headquarter for the army. So they will be getting instructions from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the main idea Sa'ad had was that this way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is protected. Okay, and Rasulullah was well guarded. Sa'ad bin Mu'adh was a leader among them to guard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, and the idea was, if Muslims are victorious, everything is good. Alhamdulillah, we'll move forward. But in case, see, this is how the whole thing is about the Muslims. You find Sahaba and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life very clearly. They planned everything. They did not just say, "Oh, we just rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not doing anything." Reliance on Allah, there's no doubt that they had the best reliance that you can have on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala they had. But at the same time, they showed with their actions that where actions have to be taken, they planned for it. and they were planning. I said, if in case of the defeat, either the more reinforcement will come from Medina, or Rasulullah ﷺ will go back to Medina and he will be able to come back with more reinforcement. That's the idea Sa'ad bin Mu'adh had, and Rasulullah ﷺ accepted that as well. And Sa'ad was the one who was protecting Rasulullah ﷺ and leading them. Okay. Now, when we see that, I mentioned one of the examples of, actually I'll go another example and then come back to this dua thing, which is the example of the Rasulullah ﷺ was preparing the Sahaba, okay, and he was even making sure the rows of the army of the Sahaba were straight. And while he was doing that, and he was looking at them, and he saw one man, he was a little bit forward from within his row. The row was not straight enough. Rasulullah was carrying an arrow. So he poked him to go back to your line properly, but in your row. And this Sahabi, Su'ad bin, his name was Su'ad, I forgot the full name, bin Ghaziyah, I guess. Let me see. Yeah, this was Su'ad bin Ghaziyah. So he said, you poked me, Rasulullah, you harmed me, and I wanted revenge. And you came to provide the justice. I wanted to. Rasulullah ﷺ uncovered his belly, so he was expecting him to. Okay, you can poke me and you get the revenge. We will be even. And he did. He hugged Rasulullah ﷺ. He kissed Rasulullah's belly. And Rasulullah ﷺ said, "What's going on here? What are you doing?" And upon that, he said, "Ya Rasulullah, you know the situation we are in. So it would be better for me. This is the last thing that I am doing. That I am touching your body, and you never know what's going to happen in the battlefield." And this is how the Sahaba's love to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. Okay, and I have mentioned this before also. See, love of Rasulullah this is one of the aspects of it. You will find that they would, even Rasulullah is making wudu, and as one of the incidents in the Hudaybiyah is mentioned, you would not see the water would fall on the ground, whatever touched Rasulullah's body. They would grab it and rub on their bodies. Okay, and even Rasulullah is even spitting out the water, they will not let that even fall on the ground. So that was a love to Rasulullah. But at the same time, love is not only about these kind of actions only. Love means to do the things as Rasulullah commanded. To following Rasulullah. This is the love. To follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whatever he has commanded us, we follow it. Same way, when you say love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love of Allah is connected to obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded. Okay, now moving forward. So that's the preparation part. So why am I mentioning the story of it? Not only about this whole thing about he was poked and he asked for revenge, but also about something that Rasulullah was making sure that even the details like this, one person is stepping forward in the row and he's making sure the row stays straight. Okay, now preparing all that, we saw about the well story and how Rasulullah agreed on the advice from Habab bin Mundhir. Now, he was also, at the same time, reliance on Allah was always there. He's making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the hadith mentions that the Friday night of the Ramadan 17th, because the battle happened on Ramadan 17th of Ramadan, right? Now, when we said night of the 17th, or night of the Jum'ah, Friday night, we know that in Islam, the day starts from the night. I mean, when you talk about date starts from the night. So after the sunset, the new day is there, right? So when we say, this is why, when we say Thursday night after the sunset, it's actually Friday has started there. Okay? That's why it's called Friday night. And this concept is, again, I'm talking ahead of time, but I want to bring it up because it's important when later on, whenever we talk about night time of a specific day, so that's referring to actually prior time, not the later one. So Friday night means actually in today's time we're probably thinking of Thursday night. Okay, that's why we do Friday night. Okay, so Friday night prior to the battle, Rasulullah ﷺ was making dua in his canopy that was made for him, or the tent. And the hadith is narrated by Abbas radiallahu anh, and he was making the dua that Rasulullah أنشدك أحدك وعدك اللهم إن شئت لم تعبد بعد اليوم أبدا. That Rasulullah was making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very intense way. Oh Allah, I request you to fulfill your promise and contract. Oh Allah, I wish if you wish that it's not that you wish. If you wish that the believers be destroyed, you will never be worshipped henceforth after that time. And when he was making this dua, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he entered and he told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that this is enough, O Allah's Messenger. You have appealed to your Rabb. Two pressing is enough. And other hadith actually give more details. When he was making the dua, his armpit, the whiteness of his armpit was showing, and the cloak that he had, it fell from his shoulder, and so on and so forth. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he put on his armor while he reciting this ayah, سَيَحْزُمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرَ بَلْ سَاعَةُ مُوعِدُهُم وَسَاعَةُ أَدْهَى وَأَمْرُ. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking about here that, talking about the kuffar, their multitude will be put to flight and they will show their backs. Nay, but the hour is their appointed time, and the hour will be more previous, more bitter. So now, this is what happened, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually replied back about the dua as well, and in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised about the malaika, the angels will be descended to help the Muslimin. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is تَسْتَغِفُونَ رَبَّكُمْ فَسَجَاوَ لَكُمْ أَنِّي مُمِدُّكُمْ بِأَلْفٍ مِّنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ مُرْدِفِينَ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when you ask help for your Lord, He will answer you. Indeed, I will reinforce you with 1,000 from the angels, falling one after another. Okay, and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the rain fall that night. And that rain actually helped, yes, I'm actually not going to go forward. This is the last slide inshallah. Help the believers also, as we mentioned previously, when we talk about Badr, there were Muslimin who were leaning towards go just after the caravan, not to fight. And this is human nature. Why you want to fight if you can get something easily? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided something else. Now there is something in their hearts, and this rain actually helped them, which is to talk about يُذِبْ عَنْكُمْ رِجْزَ الشَّيْطَانِ, that which is the rijz of the shaitan that was removed from the hearts of those believers. Okay, this is why the Sahaba of the Battle of Badr, they have a very high rank among the Sahaba. They are referred as Badri. Once you say Badri, this is a high rank Sahabi you're referring to. Even though you find the very same Badri Sahaba ended up making mistakes as well later on, as we will talk again. And the reason I mentioned this, just simply because yesterday, or day before yesterday, I was discussing with some brothers, and they think, they said, he said actually, sometimes we study about Sahaba and we become so overwhelmed that they have perfections in their life, it's impossible to follow them. You find Sahaba did have shortcomings in their lives as well. They were Sahaba also, they're not Anbiya. But those shortcomings, you have to understand that how did they deal with it? Not that shortcomings, so hence they are wrong or something, there's something bad. No, that how did they take care of those shortcomings? And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped them as well. But we have to take the steps from our end, and then we will be eligible, we will be deserving of the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so I was gonna go into how the armies met, but as usual, we cannot, inshallah, we'll stop here. And if there is any questions or comments about the subject that was discussed, even though some of the things you may feel like as if they were out of subject, but I think they are very important to learn the lessons from.